I don't think it's holding back British talent. I don't think it knows what to do with British talent. Hi, it's me again, and yeah, I'm not the only game in town when it comes to anti-BBC sentiment. Every morning I go through the papers and I have my Google alerts and stuff, and I stumble across loads more stories than ever before that are anti-BBC or having a bit of a dig at the BBC. Alright, maybe it's because I'm a bit more involved in this sphere that I pick up on more now, but I do genuinely think that it's increasing. It's building up to something. Something is snowballing, and it's not often I end up on a newspaper, The Telegraph. I'm more of a Sun or a Daily Star kind of guy, as you know. But the writer here, what was his name? Andrew Orlowski, puts it quite nicely, and he's having a nice dig at the BBC. I thought it was something we could look at together and maybe have a chat. So the headline is, the BBC is a gatekeeper holding British talent back. As I said in the intro there, I don't think they're holding British talent back. I just don't think much of the best British talent wants to work with them, really. I mean, it used to sound good on a CV, didn't it, being at the BBC? But they know they're not going to get paid the money they need to be paid, and they know the BBC aren't putting into production anything that's going to take over the world to, increase their value as actors and stuff. It's not going to happen, is it? They go to the big streaming services now and get a global platform for their talent where they can move forward. The BBC can't offer people that. So they're not getting the talent. But that's not his main point in here. When Tim Davie, the boss of the BBC, argues, as he did this week, that the BBC has a 30% real terms cut in income, we may wonder what that 30% was actually doing. For its part, ITV has hinted that it may wriggle free from its own public service broadcasting obligations if it didn't get favourable regulatory treatment. For example, it may wish to dispense with its expensive news obligation. Because BBC aren't the only public service broadcaster in the UK. ITV is, Channel 4 is, I'm not sure about Channel 5, have to check on that. But certain obligations do befall you if you want the status of public service broadcaster. But ITV have been looking at it thinking, well, what is the point? What is the point? And I can't blame ITV. They sign up for all these things to be a public service broadcaster, and they have certain obligations of what they must broadcast within that to keep it. I think it cost them a few quid, cost them quite a few quid. What do they get back for it? They don't see any of the TV licence fees. Why are the BBC put up on a pedestal over there to get all the money? But you can't watch ITV unless you pay the BBC. Other channels do need to stand up for this. They do need to stand up for it. BBC have some weird monopoly, and it just doesn't make any sense. So this guy goes on to talk about a few other things in the story. If you want to read the whole story, I'll put a link into the description below. But I picked up on this paragraph here. Their greatest indulgence of all, of course, is the BBC's state-enforced TV tax. Newcomers have demonstrated that they can do the job that the state-blessed broadcasters thought was their unique preserve. For example, the recent drama The Devil's Hour saw British TV take on high-concept Hollywood auteurs like Christopher Nolan, brilliantly using all British talent. It wasn't devised by the BBC or ITV. The backing came from Amazon. News can also be made more efficiently and more representatively by local private organisations which genuinely care for and speak for their communities. Yeah, I do think that's going to be the problem with the cuts that the BBC are trying to make to local radio. I think there's going to be loads of independents pop up, because it's not exactly hard to have your own radio channel anymore, is it? There's a multitude of places you can host a podcast or a live radio show, and people can listen and interact with it. And I think this is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, because they're going to fill the gap that the BBC is leaving behind them. But as he says there, I mean, the British talent, Christopher Nolan, brilliant using all British talent, wasn't devised by BBC or ITV, backing came from Amazon. Yeah, not just because Amazon have the money or Netflix have the money, it's the global platform. The BBC are holding back. They're just always complaining they ain't got enough money. And they always complaining they haven't got enough money, and they can't make the big dramas or anything anymore, which are quite expensive to make, granted, but they don't have to be. You can have a brilliantly written thing that's filmed relatively on the cheap, and it can still be a global hit. There's plenty of examples of that from the streaming services. I mean, the first series of, what was it called? The thing with the PlayStation buttons for your face, Squid Game, didn't cost Netflix that much money. It was a relatively small show for the Korean market, and it took the world by storm and made them a fortune. It can be done, as long as you're prepared to do it. But the BBC don't want to take any gambles. They're not interested in taking any. They don't have to gamble anything to get viewers in, because they don't need to worry about getting viewers in, because they're getting 3.7 billion quid a year in licence fees. With each year that passes, the BBC's tax comes more and more to resemble an archaic, heraldic title that nobody can remember who bestowed. Was it created by William the Conqueror? If we look closely, is it written into the Bayeux Tapestry? Who knows? To the young who evade it with ease, it may as well be. And he doesn't really come to many conclusions in this article. He's just, the thing is, he's talking about where Tim Davie this week, I've made a video on it, I'm not sure if it's on the channel yet, has said that the BBC are going to go digital only. They're not going to broadcast on the airwaves by, I think it's 2030 or 2038 or something. I'll have to check back on that. So they're going to be online only. If they're going to be online only, you don't need the licence fees then, do you? You can just charge a subscription fee or have adverts or something like ITV are doing with their ITVX service. You don't need the money. You know, young people just have no idea what broadcast TV is or why we sit down and watch it. It's the equivalent of me, like, my nephew just turned 10 and I would go round there with a record player and a vinyl record and he'd be like, what the hell is that? That's what broadcast TV is to these kids. The only way he would know what broadcast TV even exists is live football. But he couldn't wait for his favourite shows to come on. He just couldn't. So the BBC have got to move forward. But the whole thing is a mess. And it's the licence fee that's holding them back. They're not holding back British talent. The licence fee is holding back the BBC from being more, being better and moving forward. It's the licence fee is holding them back. If they had to make their own money, they would take more risks. They would make bigger shows. They would try new things to reach to a bigger global market. Not that they're not trying to reach a global market. I mean, to be fair, BBC Studios do quite a lot with countries all around the world and with the streaming services. But it's a private company, BBC Studios. It's got nothing to do with your licence fees. They can make all that money they want on the side. 1.1 billion they turned over from BBC Studios last year. How is that right? So this is a quite well-written article, and I'll put a link down in the description below if you're interested in this sort of thing. It's much better written than I could do, and he makes some fair points. So go and have a look, and then let me know what you think about it all down in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, because that way, hopefully I'll see you in another video again soon. Ta-da!